bigger question, because you have like these high standards for your man, right?
Mm-hmm.
What are you prepared to offer him?
Well, myself.
But like,
Why does this make me laugh so much? Men, are you paying attention? Her silence speaks volumes.
It's not just the silence either. It's when she answers the question. It's the double blink and the head shake. Like, well, me, duh. Hey, welcome back to my channel. It's Christine Grace, and today is another reaction video. Today we are reacting to someone who I know you will very much enjoy his videos. So do I. I've become a big fan. Alexander Grace. I'm pretty sure he actually saw one of my reactions recently, and he commented. So thank you so much for noticing me. And yeah, big fan of your videos, guys. Please do go check him out. Go subscribe to his channel. You can look him up on YouTube, Alexander Grace, and he has a Patreon as well. So make sure you go support him because he's doing very important work. And yeah, super cool that he noticed one of my videos. So yeah, let's see what this one has in store for us.
high standards for your man, right?
Mm-hmm.
What are you prepared to offer him?
Well, myself.
But like, well, what do you think that you, okay.
Man, I've seen that clip like a few times. I didn't think that I would laugh again. For some reason, silence, it just tickles me. And then the woman, like, who's asked the question, who's like, gets that meaningless answer, is like flabbergasted. Well, like, okay, I guarantee that this woman here, it's the first time in her life that she's ever thought about it. Like, what would I have to offer a man? And that's why she's completely speechless. She doesn't know what to say. It's like the question broke her brain. And she's like, yeah, like I have high standards for men. He has to be this. He has to do this. So you ask her, so what are you willing to offer?
The error 404 page came up.
For him in return? And it's like an error message in her.
I promise you guys, I have not seen this video before this. I didn't know he was going to say that.
Brain. She doesn't understand. It doesn't compute. She's like, I'm a woman. I'm perfect. What is the question? What do you mean? I'm laughing, but in truth, the psychology behind it is actually pretty dark. This is what it reveals, is that for women, they believe themselves to be up here as a just default, like de facto, like I'm a woman, I'm amazing. But, you know, for a man, he has to, you know, earn his way up to being her equal, to be worthy of her. He has to be this, he has to do this, he has to perform in this way. And only then is, you know, he worthy of being in the same, you know, sentence as a woman. It's pretty dark, and the more I'm going to explain here, the worse it's going to seem. In this video, I'm going to explain relationships in a way that you've probably never heard before, but once you understand it, you're going to see why she had complete silence of being asked that question. And first of all, don't think for a moment that this woman is rare or some kind of exception. That silence that you saw, her being speechless, that's what most women are going to respond with. I encourage you to go and try this out. Ask the women in your life. First, ask them, what does a man need to be, or what does a man need to do in order to be your partner, to be worthy of you? And then, you know, sit patiently while you listen to a very long list. Oh, he needs to be like this. He needs to be like this. He needs to have achieved this. He needs to be doing this. And, you know, if he fulfills all those criteria, then yeah, now I'll be with him, you know? And then, just like the interviewer asked this woman, ask her in all sincerity what she's going to offer a man in return. Be prepared for the same speechless response. Say that silence is actually deeply revealing of just how much sexism exists in our culture towards men. And perhaps worse than that, worse than the existence of that sexism, is just how unconscious women are of their own sexism. What do I mean by that? Okay, let's start with the basics. Let me tell you something that maybe nobody's ever told you before, which is that romantic love is transactional. Anybody who is expecting their partner to love them unconditionally, to just love them no matter what, feels that way because they were not properly loved by their own parents. They have a frozen emotional need, and so they turn their partner into a surrogate parent and then try and fix their childhood issues by shaming their partner for not loving them unconditionally. And yes, it is exactly as messed up as it sounds, turning your romantic partner into a surrogate parent. It's incredibly toxic, it's codependent, and in time, it will inevitably become abusive.
And it's very common as well. And I think there's a it's all about awareness. People need to be aware that this is such a pattern. The patterns that you get from your parents tend to reoccur in your romantic relationships. And you need to be so aware of the patterns that you have and the patterns that are sort of ingrained in you to be able to be aware of how and when they're manifesting in your relationship and if that's healthy or not. And ultimately that's on you. That's your responsibility to do that and to recognize that in yourself. You can only control yourself and how you conduct yourself. But you can't expect someone else to recognize that in you because they're not you. They don't know the kind of upbringing that you've had. And even if they do, they only know stories. They weren't there. You were there. So you need to recognize perhaps unhealthy patterns in yourself, which I know is easier said than done, but that's your responsibility as a human being. You got to deal with your own emotional shit and try not to place it onto other people.
Because at a core level, it's trying to judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree. The love of a romantic relationship was never meant to be the same kind of love that you see in a parent-child relationship. A good mother does love her child unconditionally, at least for the early years. And it's been well established that children do need that. That meets a developmental need that they have. But as they get older, they mature, they grow up, they move on. Adults who are raised by healthy, well-adjusted parents don't crave unconditional love in their romantic relationships because they understand that was a need they had when they were a toddler. They don't need that as an adult. They understand that romantic love is different in substance because romantic love is transactional in its nature. It has to be because romantic love is voluntary. Nobody's forcing you to become someone's boyfriend or girlfriend, and it doesn't make sense to voluntarily spend your life with somebody unless you are selfishly receiving a benefit. Men and women in romantic relationships trade with each other. I'll bring this to the relationship if you bring that to the relationship. I need you to bring a little bit more of that, but if you do, I'm prepared to bring a little bit more of this.
It's work, isn't it? It's a full-time job. It requires maintenance. It's two parties coming together on an agreement, and there are terms and conditions of that agreement.
And if we both think that we're getting a good deal, then we'll go ahead with the relationship.
Unfortunately, a lot of women have been fed the fairy tale and the Disney story of what love is supposed to be. And it's important to remember that Disney stories, they are for children. Often romantic relationships that you see in Disney stories, at least the original ones I'm talking about, where the prince often has to work to get the princess kind of type story, they are made for infants, so of course they're gonna portray things a bit more romanticized, a bit different. But yeah, it's not the real world. It's not reality. And reality is you're not a princess. You're not an infantile princess. You're an adult, and you should be a mature and healthy adult. And you need to understand that any relationship, whether it be a romantic relationship, a business relationship, any kind of relationship, there are terms and conditions that need to be agreed upon. We're not gonna intentionally try and hurt each other. We're gonna aim to be the best that we can and strive toward the best that we can possibly be together. And when you're down, I will try my best to pick you back up, and vice versa. These things need to be articulated and discussed, just as, say, in a business relationship, you would articulate and discuss the terms of that business relationship. I will give you this for this price, and in return you will get this. This all needs to be established, and I know that can seem a lot for some people, but unfortunately, welcome to the real world of being an adult. This is just how it is. If you want it to work, this is how it is. It's not a fairy tale, I'm afraid.
And it will serve both of our interests.
And I like the fact that Alexander here talks about the fact that it's very dangerous and dark to see it as a fairy tale. Often they'll hear people like me saying things like, it's not a fairy tale, and like, get a grip and pull yourself together and be an adult, and it can just seem very harsh, like I'm trying to tear down the fairy tale. It's like, no, I'm not just trying to tear down the fairy tale. The reason I'm saying that the fairy tale is a delusion and that it's not healthy for you to remain in that delusion is because there is nothing worse, and Jordan Peterson says this all the time, but there is nothing worse than an infantile adult. It's dark, it's twisted, it's messed up. There's something not right about it. So you don't want to be an infantile adult. You don't want to be living in a fairy tale when you're a full-blown adult. You don't want to be expecting fairy tales when you're a full-blown adult, because that's very unhealthy. It's very dark. It's very twisted. And not only are you probably going to hurt yourself, because chances are the relationship's not going to work out with that line of thinking, but you're probably likely going to hurt someone else as well, because what are infants good at? They're good at acting on their impulses, acting on their emotions, not being able to comprehend complex situations. And often they break things. They don't mean to, but they break things because they're not fully adjusted to the world yet. They're not fully able to navigate. And they can get away with it because they're children. But you're not a child. You're an adult. So you do need to get a grip. You do need to get it together.
Modern women like this one have a 50% understanding of that. She understands on her end that it makes no sense for her to be in a relationship with a man unless he's bringing some tangible improvements to her life. In order for her to commit, she needs to know that it's selfishly going to be in her best interest to be with him. That part she understands. She's got that 50% absolutely down. But the missing 50% is where she is meant to serve her husband and his needs. When you ask modern women, what are you going to do to improve the life of the man that you're with? What are you going to bring to the table? What are you going to offer him? That's where you get that error message where it's like, it doesn't compute. This question makes no sense. I'm the woman. I'm meant to receive. I'm not meant to give. And that's why I say that modern women in this culture have a deep, toxic, unconscious sexism against men. We saw examples of that in my course. So where did this sexism come from? And why does nobody seem to notice how sexist the average woman is? Why does no one talk about it? A lot of it goes back to the lack of understanding about the transactional nature of relationships and a misdiagnosis of the dynamics behind traditional marriages. A lot of what we're seeing now is this backlash against this false narrative. So let me unpack this. Radical feminists railed against the traditional marriage structure. They called it exploitative and controlling. You think of like a typical 1950s, husband and housewife. Now, there is a legitimate argument to be made that when gender roles are too strictly enforced by a culture, it is unnecessarily restrictive on personal liberty. But my God, the overcorrection in the modern era is insane. And frankly, the demonization
It's too far the other way.
of the men of the past is disgusting. The painting of all married men in the past as these toxic, controlling, abusive patriarchs who exploited their wives is fucked up. That is a deeply sexist narrative. And it's just plain wrong. Let's look at traditional marriages through the lens of a transactional relationship and see how it stacks up. Okay, what are your expectations of a traditional man? Provide the money. Don't hit her. Don't cheat on her. It's pretty basic. It's pretty low expectations. But, back in the day, as long as a man fulfilled those criteria, he was considered a good man. And it benefited her. Of course it did. That's why women back in the day wanted to get married, because the marriage would provide safety, security, dignity, respect from her friends and neighbors. And what did she provide in return? Gratitude, housekeeping, all the cooking and cleaning, raising children, sex. These elements formed the basic transaction that so many couples made. Their pair bonding was concretized using these elements as the cement. Hey, husband, you go out into the world, you take your masculine energy, and then you trade your labor for some money, and then you bring that money back and spend it on the household. Hey, wife, okay, I'll do that, but I'm out here working hard, so while I'm working, can you make sure that everything in the house is clean, that the children are being raised properly, and that there's a hot meal on the table when I get back from work? That's it. It's not
It was so simple.
that controversial. That was the trade being made. It's not the radical exploitation that feminists were making it out to be. Both parties were benefiting from this transaction. You could say that the woman's life was pretty boring, being stuck at home and doing all of that housework. But the man's.
But what's also really important to notice is that feminists eradicated a lot of those women's voices. Majority of those women didn't find it boring. Or okay, maybe they did, but they didn't care. They didn't actually want anything to change. In my family, at least, my dad's parents, that was their setup. My granddad, so my dad's father, was born in 1917. So they lived through the 30s, 40s. My dad was born in 55, and that was the setup. My granddad went out to work. He brought the money home, and my nan stayed at home and raised my dad. And when my dad started going off to school, she had a part-time job in the bakery for maybe 3 hours a day. But it was just to give her something to do, because the housework was done and she was always there to be able to be home and, pick my dad up from school and be home when he got home from school. And there would always be a hot plate down at dinner ready for my granddad when he got home from work. So it's not like these women were stopped from working. When she got bored or whatever, a lot of these women had these part-time jobs where for a couple of hours while the kids were at school, maybe they'd go work in the bakery or the library or help out at the hospital, and they just did it because not because they needed the cash, but because it gave them something to do. So it definitely wasn't this tyrannical setup that the feminists try and make out that it was.
Is life going to some
And that's that's not to be ignorant to the fact that there are exceptions to the rule. And unfortunately, as there always is in history, of course, there would have been tyrannical, oppressive relationships where, unfortunately, the woman may have been subject to abuse. But my point is that it's an exception. It's not the rule. And the problem is that the feminists have tried to make it the rule. They've tried to make it the rule that the 1950s housewife was this poor, oppressed woman who was abused by her husband and, you know, sort of chained up against the radiator type shit. Like, it's just, yeah, it is incredibly sexist towards men what feminists have tried to do to the past generation of men.
Factory or office job is pretty boring too. This is not a story of exploitation. Both genders suffered under their roles, but they're working together. They're creating this partnership in order to benefit each other and themselves. But somehow this awful sexist narrative that marriage was inherently exploitative and, you know, men were controlling women through the institution of marriage, that's what went mainstream. That's what people believed. My guess is that there were probably enough examples of genuinely horrible men who treated their wives like property and were like abusive to them, that there was enough ammunition for feminists to point to those examples and then paint the whole concept of traditional monogamy and commitment as though it reflected those fringe cases. And maybe it wasn't fringe, maybe it was 10, 20, 30%, I don't know. But whatever the number, if you ask modern women coming up in the culture today what their opinion of those traditional marriages were, they'll all tell you the same thing. That was back when women were treated like slaves and they were abused by men and they were exploited. That's their perception of what that marriage was. No concept of the actual transaction that was being made. If you ask them about the suffering that the men might have encountered in fulfilling their role of the bargain, you know, how hard it was to go out to work, to have all those financial responsibilities on his shoulders, any of the suffering that came with his roles, it's completely dismissed, negligible, unimportant. You know, we don't care about men's suffering. But the woman's suffering, she had to do all that housework. She was bored, sitting alone. Her children sometimes acted terribly and she had to deal with that. Oh my God. Protect them, protect the precious women. And conveniently, we'll also completely ignore all of the benefits that marriage brought to a woman's life. It even got to the point where you had radical feminists claiming that motherhood was a form of exploitation of men, a way to keep women enslaved and in bondage. Motherhood is exploitation of women. Think about that. Think about how twisted and far from reality you have to go before you can say something like that with a straight face. And so for modern women who sincerely believe this stuff, you can see why they can't just settle for the old transaction. You do your masculine part, I'll do my feminine part. Because to them, that seems like exploitation. That seems like slavery. It's sexist. It's exploitation. I'm a modern woman. I need more. So specifically, what do modern women want? You know, you ask them, what are you expecting? Well, I'll tell you one thing, they're still expecting to be financially taken care of. Despite all the claims of gender equality, if you ask a woman how she wants her husband
It's so full of hypocrisy.
to spend his time, she's going to talk about his job, about how much money he's going to be bringing home. I've never met a woman who asked, what's your ideal man in the future? Her saying, oh, I don't want him to work. I want him to stay home and be a house husband and raise the children while I go and make the money. Women still want men to provide the money. Watch this clip.
What would your husband's income be?
Like 200,000 plus, 200, 250.
Probably like 100K and up.
If the average is like 50, maybe like 7.
Average is 50. Average is 50. I'm pretty sure here in the UK, the average is like 25k. If that, I'm pretty sure it's like 20 to 25k. I could be wrong, and I will look it up after this video to make sure that I don't get this wrong again. But I'm pretty sure it's like around that number. Somewhere in between 20 to 30k, I think is the average per year in the UK. So in America, what's that? Maybe 30 to 40k? Average is 50k. Here in the UK, if you make 50k, you're already in the top tax bracket. Like, you're already above most people. Where are they getting these numbers from? Who is lying to these young women?
70 plus.
Okay.
I guess maybe like 80k.
Okay.
His income should be something close to about 160,000.
I would like to say maybe 100,000
Okay.
at least. Yeah.
This is so high, but I guess you'd have to be like a millionaire.
A million.
So they all give different answers. Some of those women, I mean, the entitlement and hypergamy is just off the charts. But what they all have in common that they don't even question is, yeah, my husband has to work. He has to be making money. So that hasn't changed.
And that's, that's fine. I mean, look, I'm completely inferring what Alexandra is saying here. But That's fine. We know women are hypergamous. It's fine to want a guy who goes out and works. It's fine. Like, but the problem is when all women think they're entitled to this 100k a year man, not realizing that that is a very small percentage of men. It's like, okay, you want a guy who works, fine, but why does he need to earn 80k? Why does he need to earn 100k? You can survive as a family of 3, and I am saying this from personal experience. You can survive as a family of 3, child, mother, father, on a 35 to 40k. My dad did it. He looked after me and my mum, no problems. I never went without. I never suffered. Never went to school with holes in my shoes. You know, I had everything I wanted. Everything I wanted. Every Christmas and birthday was magical. The problem here, it's gone off the rails. It's gone too much. Like, there's nothing wrong with us acknowledging the facts of nature. Women are hypergamous. That's fine. It's always been like that. But somewhere along the lines, there was a shift of, I'd like a guy who's hardworking and goes out to work, to, I want this millionaire type man. So suddenly we've disregarded the majority of men out there for this one type of man. And then we will complain when that one type of man has 20, 30, 40, 50 options before him. But it's like, well, we've created that. We've shot ourselves in the foot because we've said, we've completely disregarded all of the normal, good, hardworking men out there for this specific type of man. And then we'll complain that he's working 80, 90 hours a week for a job that pays 180k a year or whatever it may be. They're not thinking these things through. Also, who is lying to these women and telling them that these are like average numbers? Who is lying to them? Come forward, admit it. Who are you? Who are you? Tell us who you are and stop doing it. Stop lying to them. Because they clearly aren't willing to look for themselves.
That traditional expectation is absolutely still there. But if a man thinks that that's all that's expected of him is those traditional masculine roles, he's just got to bring home a paycheck and, you know, don't hit her, don't cheat on her, and that's going to be enough, he's delusional. Modern women need equality, which specifically means he needs to do equal work in all the areas that were traditionally a woman's role. Equality means the man needs to do half of the cleaning, half of the shopping, half of the...
But they want a guy who earns 200k a year. So he's probably going to be working between maybe 70 to 80 hours a week to be earning that kind of money. I mean, we're talking maybe a partner in a law firm. You're looking at 80, 90 hours per week. How is he supposed to do half of the washing up, half of the cooking, half of the child rearing when you want him to earn figures like that? And chances are you're not earning figures like that. So it's the hypocrisy, isn't it? It's the hypocrisy in, oh, well, I want equality, but I also want these traditional values as well. It's like, no, that's not going to work.
The cooking, half of the parenting. That's what equality looks like. But I actually wouldn't argue that that's the biggest additional expectation on top of men from the traditional days. No, the biggest new expectation from women of their boyfriends and husbands is that that man is going to be there to meet all of her emotional needs.
This is such a big one. This is such a big one, and I'm so glad he's brought it up because it's so true. And I often fall into this pattern as well of, you know, talking about the ridiculousness of, you know, women want this high earning, high value man. But this side doesn't get spoken about enough. It's so bad. We have so many women now who expect their man to essentially be their therapist. They don't understand that their emotions are their responsibility. Now, that is not to say that you don't deserve a partner who is supportive and can be there for you when you need the support. But it does acknowledge the fact that support means support. It's there when you need it. And, you know, a lot of women think they need all of this help and support and a shoulder to cry on, when oftentimes it's actually unhealthy that they're doing that. It becomes very codependent, as he said before. But it's facts. It becomes very codependent. It becomes very toxic and unhealthy. And it takes away the adult responsibility of recognizing that your emotions are your responsibility to deal with. And actually, it is cruel and it is unfair to unload that onto someone else, especially someone you love. That's not nice. If it doesn't feel nice in you, if the emotions you're feeling don't feel nice in you, why do you feel better unloading them onto someone else? It doesn't make any sense. It's not nice to do that.
That's new. It didn't used to be that way, but if you are her husband, then you're expected to listen to everything thought, every feeling, every opinion, every emotion she's experiencing. And you have to respond perfectly. And if what she's going through is quite distressing to her, it's your job as the man to fix it. I hate to sell out my own gender here, but us men, we're not particularly good at doing that. Deep conversations that are, highly emotional and require a lot of introspection. Yeah, that's not our strong point. But still, that is now part of the minimum expectations for a man. So if you think that you can just be nice to her,
All men now need to be a certified, qualified therapist. We're expecting of men something that they're not even good at. And then when they fall short, we're like, how dare you? It's so awful, Oh, he was emotionally abusive because he couldn't be my therapist. Yeah, it's not good. It's unhealthy.
and hand her some middle class, paycheck each week, and then you've
If, however, you want a resolution to a problem, men are good at that. Men are good at solving problems. But there's a big difference between solving a problem and providing emotional support, and women often confuse the two and they think, I want him to solve my problems. It's like, no, you don't. You want to whinge and you want someone to listen to you whinge. Problem is, men struggle to just listen to you whinge. It's annoying as shit. 2, if they're annoyed as shit by you whinging, they're going to want to stop that whinging. How do they do that? Well, you're presenting a problem. They're going to try and fix that problem. And that is in their nature. And thank God it's in their nature, because we have all of the great things that we have in the world thanks to men having this nature of fixing problems. But yeah, emotional support isn't their strong point. So you can't, you can expect them to be a competent adult enough to give you a basic level of emotional support that we can all give each other as human beings. That's not really a gendered issue. But, advanced emotional support over complex emotional issues, most men aren't going to be great at that. So go to your girlfriends, go to your mum, go to a cousin, go to some kind of nurturing motherly figure, preferably someone who is self-aware, but I'm aware myself that is increasingly difficult to find in today's day and age, so I don't really know what to suggest. But yeah, don't put this expectation on men to be this highly trained emotional therapist, because they're not great at it. And it's cruel, it's harsh to expect them to be great at something that they naturally aren't great at.
done your duty.
It would be like if a guy expected you to be great at something typically masculine. I don't know. I'm being very stereotypical here, fixing a car. It's like if he came home and was like, I don't know how to fix my car. Well, you should do it. And you go, well, I don't know anything about cars. I can't fix a car. And he goes, well, you really should. You're my girlfriend. It's your job to be here for me and you can't even fix my car. That's not very nice, is it?
Duty. You're kidding. The expectations and requirements for men has risen so much. It's still all the money that you need to provide, but now it's also half of all the domestic chores and meeting almost all of her emotional needs too. It's a lot, and it especially stings that we exist in a culture that paints men as though they're these awful sexist leeches, when men are
Most of them are just trying to get by. They're just doing their best, trying to get by, and just getting beaten down by the world, seemingly around every corner. But they majority of them, they keep bloody going. The sad truth is a lot of them don't keep going. And then we wonder why higher suicide rates are in men. Well, look at what we're doing to them. I don't really want to go down that dark route right now in this video. But it's, we've got to live in reality, and that is a part of reality.
doing so much more now than they ever did in the past. You've never had anything like the culture as it exists now. There's never been a time in history where men have done more to serve women's needs. And yet at the same time, it seems like there's never been a greater level of vitriol towards men. It's one of the reasons why at some point you just start tuning out all the complaints about men, because you think, look, there's no acknowledgement of the progress that's already been made. So it just seems like, there's no winning. The desire for men to do more and more and more, it just seems insatiable. And this is why you have so many men who just look at modern marriages and relationships and say, it's not worth it. This transaction sucks. I'm getting a bad deal. The requirements for men has risen so much, and at the same time, the expectations for women have sunk. There is less expectation on women to solely do the housework, the cooking, the cleaning, the shopping, the parenting. And if you even remotely suggest that it might be a wife's duty to attend to her husband's sexual needs,
You're about to get cancelled on everything if you was to say anything like that. I disagree. I think you should be able to say, look, you should be doing this for me. I do this, so you should be doing that. But the general consensus is, if you was to say something like that, you're a sexist, you're a misogynist, all of those buzzwords that we always hear to villainize men.
God help you. So for everything that men are offering women, What exactly are they getting in return? Let's watch the video again. It's so funny.
So I think like the bigger question, because you have like these high standards for your man, right?
Mm-hmm.
What are you prepared to offer him?
Well, myself.
But like, what do you think that you? Okay,
Why does this make me laugh so much? Men, are you paying attention? Her silence speaks volumes.
It's not just the silence either. It's when she answers the question, it's the double blank and the head shake. Like, me? Duh.
So here is my advice. If you are dating someone and you are considering making them your wife, be explicit about what you're trading with each other. Romantic relationships are transactional, and so lay out the terms of the deal as clearly as you can. Have the conversations, talk about it. This is what I am offering, and this is what I would like in return. The true love is unconditional myth is total bullshit. It's just used by women who want to manipulate men into getting stuff we're not having to give anything back. Getting married is a huge deal, and I want you to get a good deal, so lay out the terms. Do not settle for vague answers. Have her actually lay it out. Okay, if we team up, if we do this thing, if we create a marriage, we partner up like this, I'm going to be contributing this. I'm going to be contributing my respect, my companionship, my fidelity, this much of the housework, this much of the parenting. I don't know the exact details about what you want out of your marriage and what your vision is for your life going into the future. So that's not for me to actually dictate the terms of your deal. I'm just saying, make a deal, talk about it,
Clarify a deal, articulate a deal, be able to say like what's in it for you and what you're going to get out of it. 100%.
out exactly what you're signing up for. If you don't, you might accidentally wife up a girl who has this unconscious belief that it's her role as a woman to get served by you, whereas she should do nothing in return. Too many men are underestimating the value of what they're bringing into a relationship. You're giving up your freedom. You're giving up a huge amount of money. You're giving up, like, there's an opportunity cost, all these other options that you could have pursued, but you didn't because you chose her. That's a big deal. You're giving up a lot. Please make sure that you're not giving it up for nothing. Make sure you're getting something good in return. Do not make the trade unless you perceive that you are receiving something of equal or greater value. Now, this dynamic can get a lot more complicated when you have women in the workforce, because it's like, right, well, I'm the man, I'm providing the money, but she also has a job and she's providing money. And so how does this upset the balance of gender roles and what you're trading with each other? I answer that question in the full version of this video. I actually go into a lot of detail. It's a nuanced topic. If you want to see how that disrupts the balance of a relationship, if you want the answer to that question, come over to Patreon. You can see the full version of this video. When you're seeing here on YouTube, this is just the shortened, abridged version. Come over to Patreon for the extended version.
Yeah, I mean, completely agree. Make sure you can clarify the terms and conditions of your deal before setting the deal in stone and then potentially being stuck in something that you can't get out of. Another great video from Alexander Grace. Thank you for your content. It is greatly appreciated and I always learn a lot from it, and I really hope that you guys do too. Be sure to go subscribe to Alexander Grace, look him up on YouTube, and go support his Patreon, where he has all of these unedited long form videos where he goes into these topics in a lot more detail, and yeah, you will definitely learn something. So yeah, that's it. I'm very impressed again with these videos, and I think they're absolutely necessary, and it's really important that this information is out there and that it's talked about in a healthy way, which I think Alexander Grace does. So yeah, it doesn't scream anything controversial. It's all I think it's all pretty obvious, and it's all pretty much common sense. But hey, what do I know? Why don't you let me know what you think in the comments below? If you like this video, please do give it a thumbs up. Be sure to subscribe to my channel to check out all of my other reaction videos, and go check out my series Debunking the Lunacy, where we debunk the lunacy of a lot of these crazy women who seem to think that this is the right way to go about life, and that they're totally not founded in delusion with all of these mindsets. So yeah, if that sounds like something you'd be into, why don't you go check it out, and I will see you over there.